If you love being underground and you like history, then the World Museum of Mining is a place you want to hang out. Both the museum and the mines are located in Butte, Montana. My lovely bride and myself headed on down there and hung out with a very knowledgeable fellow named Tim. Tim was nice enough to take us down into an active mine. Along the way, he explained everything about the history of mining in Butte, Montana, as well as information on how the mining was actually done. Unfortunately, Tim asked us not to film the first half of the tour. It consisted of fascinating information about who started the mining, the major players involved in promoting it, and the absolutely horrible working conditions of being a miner. I'm seriously bummed I didn't get that on video. Here's the entrance to the mine that we went into. Once we got here, he said, "Film away." It's not actually the original entrance. This is the entrance they built specifically for the tour groups. Their current crew that's working in the mine is removing all the old support timbers and installing wire and anchor brackets instead. Don't be fooled by how well lit up these pictures are. The only lighting in that mine is what you have on your headlamp. This really cool shadow showing me holding up my phone is the reason why the pictures are so good. It's a Galaxy S24 Ultra phone. That's Android, by the way. It has 5 separate cameras on the front of it. In the dark, the phone ripples off several dozen pictures from all 5 cameras. It then recombines all of them to make these wonderful, well-lit pictures in the dark. As we came across equipment like this old drill, Tim explained in detail how it was used. A little over 100 feet down, we came across the school classroom. We learned all about the winch on the left-hand side that was used to pull ore out of this tunnel that they're digging upward out of the main tunnel. This ore was hauled out in these carts. The device you see in front of this cart was essentially a spring-loaded bucket that scooped up ore, then threw it back into the cart. After we got done learning all about the way it used to be done with this equipment, we ran around the corner and found real miners doing it with modern equipment. Today, they're removing that wood support structure in front of them. If you look real close right here, you can see it's actually cracked in half. So this means it's probably a good time to turn around and get out of the mine. We head back up toward the surface, but along the way, Tim wants to show us a lot more stuff. This is a deposit of cadmium sulfide that the original miners missed. When I asked how they knew where they're actually digging their mines, Tim pointed out on the ceiling there are survey markers. He said even though this was put in over 100 years ago using primitive methods, that today's modern equipment said they were within a quarter inch of where they actually said they were. Here we see the original entrance to the mine. This is how they got people in and out, as well as the ores. This teeny little box was for transporting miners. I hopped in there and looked up, and directly above us, those big metal structures that had the winches that lifted everything up and down. The ore that came out of the mine was dumped into these train cars and shipped out for smelting. Finally, our last stop before heading out of the mine. There's a right way and a wrong way to hold on to this jackhammer. After Tim educated us, we all stood in for some selfies. I find this is pretty interesting, because Tim was moving while my camera was shooting all the dozens of pictures. When the pictures are all combined, it basically turned Tim into a wraith. So, is this photographic evidence there's ghosts in this mine? After spending so much time in the dark, the sunlight at the end of the tunnel was somewhat overwhelming. And there you have it, everyone survived the tour. For the rest of this video, let's watch our tour guide as he shares an absolute plethora of information with us.
Oh, lights on.
Lights on.
Yep, just reach up and turn that. For the most part,
Glow.
I'm going to leave mine off. Maybe do one more click to get you to the bright setting if you guys have it, just because there's only 4 of us. It'll help me see better.
You're on.
Yeah, for the most part, I'll leave mine off so I'm not hitting you guys in the eyes. So, if you're curious. So this entrance to the mine, the seal portal we're in is from 2014. The opening to the mine goes back to 2005. This was all developed for the most part in conjunction with the mine school at Montana Tech. And so if we look at this aerial photograph right here, we can see that there's tunnels all the way up here too. This was a different mine up here called the Orphan Boy. Came after the Orphan Girl, so I guess they decided she needed a little brother. So all of these tunnels are used by the School of Mines, or the mining department over there. And
They teach classes in these mines?
yeah, actually,
That's pretty
Montana
cool.
Tech is the only college with an on-campus mine.
Wow.
The guys can actually go down and work. And all this we're going to work through, most all of this had the help of actual tech students. They got a chance to do drilling and blasting and all of that.
Nice.
So where we're coming in right now is this right down here. We're going to walk down. This is that head frame we just looked at,
Okay.
where the shaft is. So the 65-foot shaft station's right there, but we're going to walk past it. We're going to walk all the way down around, and then we'll get to about here. We can look down at the other side of that shaft. But this is right where they're working, so that's where the mud will begin. So we'll do our best there. But yeah, you can see they have a lot more to work with over there with the college.
Nice.
Right here we've got my favorite map of Butte ever. I love it so much. I've got one in my house. This covers the bulk of the mines we had. So you can see we're way over here. Orphan Girl and the Orphan Boy. It's kind of how Orphan Girl gets its name, because it's way over here, estranged from the rest of the mines, okay? This mine, Orphan Girl, goes down to 2,731 feet. The bottom layer, the bottom station, though, of the Orphan Girl was referred to as the 3,200 because it connected with the mountain con at its 3,200 level. So most of these mines are connected. So you could get out, even when they were owned by different companies, they'd connect the mines for safety reasons.
Wow.
So you could climb into Anselmo and get out way over here at East Colusa, probably. These different colored lines are our drifts. The dots would be our mine shafts, okay? So as you drive around town, you see we've got about 11, I think we have 11 head frames that are still standing. Those are marked here with these little icons, but you can see there was a lot more. So there would have been a lot more head frames around town, a lot more mine shafts. If you add up all these drifts though, so the different colors are different levels, basically. Here's the key here. So the yellow stuff's close to the surface. Green's 1,000 to 2,000. We go down to the blue, it's 4,000 to 5,100 feet. And actually, the Mountain Con and the Kelly go below 5,300 feet. So that's where Butte gets its other nickname, Mile High, Mile Deep. We're about a mile in elevation. If you go down in the flats, it's about a mile elevation. But up on the hill, we go 5,300 feet deep, mile deep. Okay? Oh yeah. Add up all these drifts. 10,000 miles of mine workings. Nearly enough to go halfway around the world, just shy of half the circumference of the planet underneath Butte, okay? You can see the direction these drifts take, just even at all those different depths and levels. The reason they have that shape is because our drifts are generally following the ore body. So that is the natural ore body of Butte. So you can actually kind of see what that landscape underground is made of. But we've also got this is kind of an early computer design, so it's not totally clear, but that's to kind of give the three-dimensional underground picture of Butte, okay? But we really have to think about it in 3 dimensions. There is a city on top, and then there's a whole city underground, because you have men working at all these different levels, rail cars, mules, all that going at all these different levels.
Just like an aircraft carrier.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great example. Okay. You can see right here, there's an especially high concentration of those drifts, especially in the yellow, pink, and green, so closer to the surface. This is why they choose this area to become the Berkeley pit. Berkeley pit, at the time they decided to start digging it, was to be the biggest hole ever dug by mankind at the time. It's been outdone since, but that's the idea. Mm-hmm. You go uptown, you've got all those tall buildings. There was a whole nother section of that over here called East Butte. It's all gone. It's where the Berkeley pit is now, okay? Berkeley pit runs from 1951 to 1985, at which point they turn off the pumps and it fills up with water because we have all of that copper sulfide. Berkeley pit is contaminated with sulfuric acid. It's considered the largest body of contaminated water in the country. It's about a 4 on the pH scale.
Whoa.
So if you're familiar with the pH scale, 7 is neutral, 4 is a little bit more acidic than like white vinegar, but still not great to go swimming in. Okay, we have another pit now that is opened that's not on this map. It's over here. It's called the Continental Pit. It is currently operated by Montana Resources, and rumor is they're on the threshold of a major copper load. So
This would be good.
it could be right back into it, back in the money.
We might be able to keep the penny.
Yeah, yeah, we might be able to. Maybe
Now-
we'll have a more expensive pit.
So the pit is full of water, so are all the mine shafts below it full of water?
Everything's full of water.
Oh,
so
okay.
even this mine that we're going to, this map is essentially useless, but it would have shown this is our 3200 level. We're going down to about here. The water comes right up to it. So 100, I think it's 135 feet or 165 feet. Can't remember which one. There's water. So
Okay.
it's basically right below where we're going to, okay? There's that water level. So yeah, at any point that the Butte mines were going, you had to have pumps running because otherwise your groundwater would come back out. In the early days, some people did get away with dry mining, like they just got lucky. But if it started filling up with water before the pumping technology came about, a lot of mines got abandoned because they filled up with water until we could pump them out. So hypothetically, you could pump out some of these old workings and rework them, but nobody's done it yet.
But they're all interconnected. So
Yeah,
you'd be
well,
pumping a lot of pipe or a lot
There's
of.
another side of it though.
Uh-oh.
So when they closed the underground mines, due to environmental concern about the water table and cross-contamination, most of those mines have cement walls between them
Ah,
to close
okay.
them off from each other. Yep. So any other questions about this big, beautiful map we've
No,
got?
that's a nice
Okay.
map.
Yeah, if you're interested, there's a couple places around town that sell them, and I could point you in the right
Okie doke.
direction. All right. I guess the last thing I'll just mention, we have as many as 10,000 miners working in Butte in the heyday. The population of Butte in its heyday is right around when World War I's happening. So there's a huge push. We talk about the big push for electricity and the telegraph that really gets Butte going, turns it into a city. When Butte peaks in population is right around the time of World War I. Another huge push for copper and especially zinc. Both are used in the creation of brass. Okay, brass is major to the war
Oh, yeah.
effort, right?
Shell
It's
casings.
around the same time though that there's a major anti-war movement that kind of cross-pollinates with the radical side of the labor movement at this time. There's major strikes because people don't want American involvement in a European war, especially the Finnish and the Irish. So there's huge strikes that shut down the mines. This is very concerning to the U.S. government, who's trying to help out the Allied effort in World War I. So they actually put Butte under martial law.
Whoa.
The National Guard comes to pick up where the Pinkertons left off at getting guys to go back into the mines.
Wow.
The other thing was some of the Butte miners got drafted during that time, so you have different people that were on deferment or unfit for service for whatever reason, all get sent out to Butte to work the mines. So a big shift around that time. Population goes to about between 70,000 and 100,000. I've heard both ends of those estimates. I think that's because some estimates include surrounding areas, some don't, and then some people definitely would have avoided the census because of their immigration status. But yeah, also most of that population at that time was on the hill. So the population density in Butte rivaled anywhere in the world, any major city. Okay, we'll head down into the mine now. Just discuss this stuff a little bit. This is a much more modern form of cribbing, and this is what it looks like. It's just chain link fence. So this really gets shifted to as a cribbing device when we have a wood shortage. So we talk about 10,000 miles of mine workings. That's much, much, much more in terms of actual timber underground. So you drive around Southwest Montana, you don't see a lot of trees
No, you don't.
because they're in underground Butte, okay?
They've joined the roots.
Yeah, they're all underground in Butte. We switched to this. It's actually better in most ways, and obviously requires a lot less trees. After you do your blasting, your first step is what's called a bar down. So you could send in some guys with a long pole to scrape the top of the mine, get the loose rocks all down so they're not falling on people. That's one of the big dangers in the Butte mines. We actually had a name for those big rocks that came down and fell on people, called them a Dugan. That was the name of the funeral home director in town.
Oh, bummer.
Okay. We still have a Dugan funeral home, believe it or not, and the term Dugan has gone on to be used by mines all over the world. Pretty cool. When you're driving in, this kind of cribbing though, we use what's called a rock bolt. It's designed to basically fit the same hole you're drilling for the dynamite, so it's the same circumference as your dynamite at this end, and then as you drive it in, this split down the middle collapses, creating compression, and that holds our cribbing up. So first step, bar down. Second step, put up cribbing to keep the rocks from falling on you. And then the third step we get to is that mucking. So we'll get down underground, we'll talk more about mucking. A little muddy through here, not too bad yet. It'll get pretty nasty when we get down to the bottom.
The mud isn't the problem, it's a little bit slippery.
It is, yeah, it's a little slippery. I think they put some sand or dust, kind of came down from, they were actually doing some dry drilling. Mostly we don't do any dry drilling, I forgot to mention that, because of the dust concern. Yeah, it's mostly wet drilling now, but they actually did some dry drilling, so we have some dust to deal with right now. We're not gonna have you guys come back here for safety reasons, but I was just gonna point out a couple things about these different mine cars.
Okay.
If you want to get up close and personal, there's the underground exhibit underneath that hoist house that we were at up above, where you can actually put your hands on these. So with the different ones we have back here, we've got an ore car, then we've got a timber car. So all that timber cribbing would have been carried on timber cars. They also used timber cars as kind of a makeshift ambulance because it was the lightest of the mine cars. So you could push a guy to the hoist station. Then we got this right here, big heavy iron lid. It's lined with wood. We're gonna keep our dynamite in that. We call that a powder car. Then we got another ore car, and then we got this, which is a potable water car. So you'd be able to flip this top and use a ladle to get water out of there for drinking. Sometimes they brought down ice to help mitigate those really high temperatures. So that would have been a great day in the mine if you had ice in your water. Then there's another car, we don't have one, that's very similar to this car. Would have been a little bit more of a seat on top and a step in the side, okay? That one's called a honey pot. I'll let you kind of put together what that was used for. Believe it or not, they had mine cars supposedly underground where they had six seaters, honey pots. So
6 seaters?
6 seaters. So 6 guys could sit next to each other and do their business. So
wow.
Not a lot of room for being shy. Okay, we're gonna head on down a little further. Yeah, you'll see there, we got some more of these original signs. This one's talking about bar down. Just help explain to guys, you want to get those Dugans off the ceiling. This is another one. Obviously, you don't want to be smoking while you're dealing with dynamite, but you also don't want to be smoking underground because there are sections with bad air, like real nasty in some spots, okay? So right now, our modern lines, done with this HDPE, one of these is running water so they can do wet drilling. The other one's running compressed air for their drills. Oftentimes would have had a third one though up to deal with that bad air underground and the high temperatures. They actually piped air from the surface down in canvas tubes. So you would have had guys come through, cut holes in that canvas and be able to, breathe some nice, cool mountain air when they're down underground. So we're going to start the descent. Just want to point out, we've got a railing. It may come in handy. It will probably get slick. As we get to the bottom, it will get muddy. Also, you're pretty tall. You might want to watch your head. At the very bottom, it gets a little narrow.
We've never been accused of being tall.
Well, you would have done good in the mine, actually.
Oh, I know.
They said
I know very much
the
well.
average height of the miners in Butte was about 5'5", which I can't believe.
Really?
I can hardly believe. It's got to be
That's
the
like
Irish bringing down that average.
That's freakishly tall. We're 5'2".
Yeah, they said 5'5", 115 pounds.
Whoa.
Marcus Daly, who we talked about, a big cause for how many Irish people came out here. He's really like one of the first truly successful rich Irishmen in American history. So he has a big push for Irish workers to come through. He put Irish people at the highest levels of his organization. Butte at one time has the highest Irish population per capita.
Huh. Here's
Still
the mud.
a lot of Irish here. Okay, we got mud here.
We found the mud.
Like. This side's not so bad. We're gonna kind of gather right around here. Sounds like they're making some noise. We just have to see if they're coming around with equipment.
Looks like they're coming.
Looks like they're coming, yeah.
Oh, great.
All right, so I'm gonna step right here. As long as you guys can all see me, we'll all be good. Okay, this is a ore car I was talking about. This is a 1-ton ore car. So if you get that big chunk of granite we saw, ideally that fits right just snug in here. Okay, but if you got good lead ore like you'd have been looking for here in the Orphan Girl mine, you could have maybe gotten one of these up to 3,000 pounds, otherwise about 2,000 pounds. Early days, the men are responsible for pushing these. So, you see there's a slight grade on the
These are
tracks.
the 115-pound men.
Yeah, 115
Pushing
pounds
a ton.
pushing a ton, right? So
Wow.
you got the hard wheels on the track to help you. You got a slight grade going down to your shaft station. So that's going to help, but it's a lot of work. So eventually we start bringing mules down into the mine, okay? The mules that worked in the mine did not get to go home at the end of the day.
What?
They actually had stables underground, and so the mules lived their entire life underground. When the mules are replaced by electric tram cars, they bring some of those mules to the surface, and they find out that they basically were blind because they lived in the darkness their entire life.
jeez.
Don't want to start feeling too bad for the mules though, because they were a very beloved thing in Butte. They were very well fed, well taken care of. They got long breaks. They got first dibs on that ice water. Lots of pets. They were just beloved by the miners, and most miners said the mules were treated better than the men. Okay. They did get stubborn, however. So you could hook up 4 of these and have a mule pull it. But the mules could count how many times these had clicked in. So if you tried to slip a 5th car on there and they heard that clank, they would refuse to work. They might refuse to work for the rest of the day.
Oh, good for
They were
them.
stubborn as a mule. So miners came up with a way of bribing the mules. Since they're well fed, they weren't going for the pasties. So they actually started bribing them with chewing tobacco. And the mules would chew the tobacco, spit it out just like the men.
No kidding.
Yeah, so we've got in Butte, we got mules that live their whole life underground, thousands of feet under the earth. They're blind as a bat, and they're addicted to nicotine. Pretty fun stuff.
The Great
Okay.
West.
So we talked about the first 2 stages. We're going to do a bar down. We're going to put up some cribbing. Then the next stage would have been mucking it out, okay? This is a mucking machine. Mucking it out just basically means cleaning. This is a hydraulic overshot mucker. These are kind of crazy. They would hook them up to that same compressed air that you're running your drill with, and that compressed air runs much like a hydraulic system, but I guess it's basically just explodes with a spring. Like it just pops this thing up and over itself and shoots the ore into the car. So I have never seen one run. I was just having one explained to me.
Would they have to?
It popped up with so much force that sometimes these would jump up in the air and fall off the track.
And they'd have to physically push that under the ore?
Yeah, you slide this into your gravel pile.
That would be hard to do right there.
Yeah, it's hard work. And if you could avoid using an overshot mucker and use the gravity to send stuff down a chute right into your ore cars, you'd try to do that. But obviously, in some cases, you got to muck that out. So you'd have an overshot mucker here. Last cool, well, we got a couple more cool things at this spot, but the next thing I want to point out is that they actually found, when they dug this out for the museum, they found 2 veins of ore that got missed by the original mine. But I shouldn't say the original mine because that's a different name for a different mine. By the Orphan Girl mine. Right here is one of them. This whole section of orange is manganese rich ore right here. And you can see, if point your lights up where my finger is, you see that little bit of pink right there?
Yes.
That's pure manganese in its crystalline form we call rhodochrosite. So the mine missed these, and this other vein right here we've got galena. This is this dark grayish blue color.
Okay.
Galena is a lead ore. It's got zinc and lead in it, and oftentimes within galena you're going to find silver. Okay, so this would have been our primary money maker that we're looking for, is galena. These 2 veins missed by about 100 feet.
Oh.
If they would have found these, it probably could have kept the mine going another 10 years.
Because how do they know how far the veins go?
I don't think they've explored them, but that's another good question. I don't have a perfect answer.
Well, back then, how did they know what technology did they use to figure it out?
Well, the guy that was responsible for that was called an assayer. And assayers were kind of geologists and chemists, and they in charge of melting down your minerals, getting your assessing basically how rich your ore was, all of that. And the assayer would come underground and try to basically guess which direction the ore is going. So you can see, though, most of those ore veins are running in the same direction when we look at that drift map.
Yep.
So they had some idea. As they spent more time underground in Butte, they would have had a better and better idea about what they were doing. But in the very early days, it's literally guessing. And I'm sure many an assayer died because they got it wrong, right? And there's a lot of money on the line. Huh. Okay, next thing I want to do, a little experiment. I'm going to go ahead and light this candle.
Uh-oh.
And I want you guys to reach up and turn those headlights off. Hopefully they're not sending us too much light. We can actually get a good sense of this.
Oh.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Well, we got a little bit of light pollution. Hello.
Okay, we'll turn our lights off.
Hey, you're okay.
You're all right.
All right. So this is what it would have been like working with single candle.
Boy,
So if you had 2 guys working, you'd have 2 candles.
You got to get that candle real close to the wall just to see the rock.
Yeah, and you wouldn't always be able to do that. But this is where it gets really crazy, right? We talk about double jacking. One guy's holding that tool steel. Other guy's swinging the hammer. Which would you rather be? The guy swinging the hammer or holding the tool steel? Swinging the hammer, right?
I want to be the guy feeding the mule.
Yeah. Well, it gets 1 degree crazier because can you even see the end of that tool steel?
No.
So what are you aiming at?
Your hand. You're aiming at the middle of your hand.
1 step further, what they would do to give him something to aim at is they'd put their thumb over the end of the steel.
Oh, get out of here.
Nope, that's exactly how they did it. So that glint off the thumbnail would be the thing to aim at. So you got to leave your thumb there while he's aiming the hammer. Then you got to move it out of the way before he hits that steel. And they did this by working in very steady rhythms. And it was very common to even sing songs in the mine to keep that rhythm going during those long shifts.
Oh, it is getting better as our eyes adjust to the dark.
It'll adjust a little bit. They say about 20 minutes to adjust. It'll get better. But it's still incredibly crazy to think about them doing this. This next section, we usually blow this out. I don't know how much light that camera will give off, but we'll try to do a... yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm going to blow this out, and then we'll have a moment of pure darkness to enjoy. You guys already know about this.
Oh, yeah.
Cave tours, but...
Every tour we go on, we get the dark cave.
Yeah, the darkness. Awesome. So, yeah, we have people put their hand in front of their face. So you might get stuck like for a long time, going the wrong direction, backing over where you've already been because you just become so disoriented. Okay, we're going to talk about this up here. We've got kind of an example of some different mine workings. You shine your lights up there. You can see we got like a little room basically. Oh, that's what we'd call a stope. Okay, a stope is working off your main drift into an ore body. Your idea though is to go up under the ore so that you can let it fall down. In this case, you'd have it falling down this chute right here and right into your ore car right below, okay? So you're using that gravity. So yes, Butte miners were hard workers, but they loved being lazy whenever they could. So the chute is doing the major portion of that work. Now this is a very small form of what we call a rise. They actually had special rise miners because it's a lot harder to work up at an angle. But if the ore body goes up at an angle, you gotta make the shaft go up at an angle. So that's where you get into a rise. Over here, we have a very strange depiction. I'm not super satisfied with this, but it's supposed to be our strange depiction of what's called a Tommyknocker. Tommyknocker mostly comes from like Irish lore, so I've always imagined them being a little bit more like a leprechaun, but they are said to be the spirit of the miners who died in the mines, and instead of being like a ghost down there to haunt you, the idea most of the miners believed is that Tommyknocker was there to keep you safe. So if you might have heard a weird noise or caught a weird smell that was out of the ordinary, they'd say that was the Tommyknocker warning you of danger. A lot of times they'd give a little offering to the Tommyknocker, maybe the tail end of that pasty they were eating. They'd throw it down in the shaft or put it somewhere of significance to leave that for the Tommyknocker so they'd stay in his good favor. Maybe a shot of whiskey if they brought it down, for sure.
Oh, Fridays.
This is my favorite of the signs here, the safety sign. So eventually we go from those big pneumatic drills that were on the tripod we looked at down to a jack leg, which is a single man can just hold this and drill that way. Common thing with these jack legs, especially with a newbie, is they try to stand centered on it, right? To get more stable. Well, that bottom of the jack leg can kick out. So you don't want to straddle it. That's what it's telling you. Don't straddle the drill. He's getting a nice hit between the legs.
Oh yeah.
The part of this though that we kind of don't have the context for, the real joke of the poster, is that while he's getting hit, he's having this little thought bubble of the Sultan's harem. And they would have known at the time the Sultan's harem consisted of eunuchs. So it's suggesting if you straddle the drill, you're going to end up a eunuch.
I only do that one time.
A lot of times they wouldn't correct a newbie though, so he had to learn the hard way. All right, we got some real action going down here, so it's just going to get muddier. I'm going to try to walk the driest path I can kind of figure out. So if you just follow me, we'll hopefully not get too bad. It's not as bad as it was yesterday. We'll try to kind of stay here towards the back. It looks like it's a little easier going. Here, let me move this back real quick. Oh, sure.
Oh.
Give them a little space. He's going to, sounds like, get this bobcat out of the way for us. So this would be a more modern version of mucking equipment. So
Is that a diesel engine?
Yeah, I think that's diesel. Yep. I think most of the stuff they're running down here runs off diesel. That's why it's a little cooler down here than usual because they're running ventilation.
Okay.
They got the engines going.
So they push the air in, not suck it out?
Are you pushing the air in or sucking it out?
Either or.
Either or.
Depends on what the plan calls for. Sometimes if you're, let's say you had a heading like this that you had to feed air to, obviously you got to push it in.
Mm-hmm.
But down there's a shaft here now, so let's say you didn't have that.
You guys can squeeze in down
You
here.
didn't have that drift that we were
everybody
coming down, and you could suck it down and get to where you wanted to go. So it just push and pull.
Okay. Looks like you guys are making some headway.
Oh.
Got that first set of timbers out.
Oh, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them out.
4 of them out already. Okay, my depth perception's off.
It looks like that one right there is cracked.
That,
Is it?
that's basically the reason. A lot of the reason we're taking these out they've served their useful life.
That answers my question. You can tell they're bad when they're cracked.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
But they,
I know they had an inspector come look at them.
Yeah, that's why they added what this what I think they call an anaconda arch or something like that. But that's why they added this other set here to help put a little bearing on it.
Yep. So this is our original 100-foot shaft station. This would have been the first station at the Orphan Girl. And from what we're guessing, as they're taking these timbers off, we're thinking probably original to the mine. It looked like from the handwriting he was saying, like 1920s.
And they're covered with creosote.
Probably an arsenic treatment.
Okay.
Yeah, Anaconda did arsenic treatment on their shaft timbers and stuff.
Okay. I'm getting corrected. We get fact checked sometimes.
Okay, I'm deaf. I can't hear anything.
If you look all the way back,
arsenic.
though,
Oh, okay.
you can see there's the 3 compartments of the shaft. So I'll just make note that one all the way on the right hand side is primarily the one used for men. So that would have been our chippy compartment. And then the other 2 would have been used for the other mine cages, bringing tools down, bringing ore up.
Wow.
But yeah, this is your chance to look at an original Butte shaft station as it would have looked for the miners.
We'll ever be able to see.
Yeah, exactly. You guys are really some of the last ones to get to see it as is.
Nice.
All the way on the left-hand side. So this is pretty standard chippy. This one actually was used by the Orphan Girl mine. Over here, that would have been for the ore cars, tools going up and down. You know, if you wanted to, I'll just say as we're exploring, if you want to look over, you can. Don't lean on the wood, please.
Hang on to your hat.
Hang on to your helmet, and you can look down. There's not much to see, but there is some water down there. There's some timber and some water, so that's what's below us. But beneath the surface of that water is another 2,700 feet of water. Wow. So, don't want to drop your helmet, please. This is the chippy. You guys can also get in here. I just want to point out a couple things. If you stand right here at the threshold, hold on to that helmet, and look down, you can see a light. That's that 100-foot station we were just at. And then you can also stand right at the edge, kind of right at the edge of this timber, and you can see the light up above. That's the collar of the mine. So that's 65 feet above you. Last thing I'll mention before I let you guys get around is we talked about those hoist signals. We got a little buzz coming. Okay.
Wow.
All right, so this is what we would have had going underground at all times. This thing would have been going off constantly, would have been very, very loud down there. Also, most miners had some degree of hearing loss from all the noise, so we have this light to give a visual element to those communications. So your station tender would have been in charge of sending those signals up. He would have just been sitting here waiting, because this was going off from all the other levels. He'd wait for a break in the chain of communication. Then he'd first clear the bell. Clear the bell. Now I can announce what station I'm at and what I need. I got 5 people that need a ride to the surface, okay? So they had different codes for all of that. Or, you know, we need some jack legs down at the 400.
And how many people would fit into the chippy thingy there?
You guys want to take a guess? There's 2 answers.
Well, you said there's 5 people waiting.
There's an answer. Well, that's because there's 5 of us.
Oh, okay.
When I got a group of kids down here, it's 14 youngsters that need to go to the surface. Okay. There's 2 answers for that. There's beginning of shift when they're going down, and then there's end of shift when they're all trying to get off work.
Okay.
So,
yes.
So, venture a guess.
Well, when there's beer waiting, I'm going to say you can put 12 people in there.
Pretty good. Pretty close guess. And we've heard about 13.
13?
Yeah.
In that little area.
Yeah, we tried it with kids yesterday that were like 7th graders, and we couldn't fit. We couldn't even fit 13 7th
Remember, they
graders
only weighed 115 pounds.
I don't
how much does a
understand
7th
how they
grader
fit
weigh?
13 in there. But at the beginning of shift, regular amount of people to send down in a cage that size is 8.
Wow.
Do you want to go stand in it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely recommend standing in it. Only other thing I'd mention really at this station is that there's a 4th secret compartment back here, which is called the manway. It is just a ladder. It's a ladder from the collar, 2,700 feet down. Okay. There's no safety cage, nothing. It's just a ladder. That's your emergency exit. So would have probably tried to avoid that unless you were sneaking out on shift for a cigarette.
Wow.
That'll take a while.
Yeah, we wouldn't really want to get into that too much.
Yeah, I got you.
Look at the corrosion on that stuff.
Yeah, and this is more recent, but this is what
Yeah.
you run into down here with all the different moisture.
Did they ever understand the shaft that collapsed in Butte?
I don't think so. For the most part, those shafts are very well tended for. You'll see there's a lot of shafts around town that no longer have head frames. If you see a big, just square of concrete, that's probably an old shaft, and that's how they capped those. And it's
Okay,
just
yeah,
a
we've seen a
big,
couple of those.
Thick pad. I think they're 6 feet deep.
6 feet.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Wow.
6 foot deep, just pad of concrete to close those up. Yeah, the Colorado, which the Orphan Girl head frame came from, that one's capped up right next to Sparky's Garage Restaurant. So if you go over by Sparky's, look at the lot next door, you can see that's that big old mine shaft that's capped with concrete. But they're all over town. You'll just see them. Any other questions?
Okay.
We should start heading
Not
up
yet.
to the surface now. so-
Okay.
Okay. Well, if you got anything, hit me on the way. If you want a recommendation for a good spot to try a pasty, if you're curious about that, I'd send you over to Joe's Pasty. There's also the pasty place. That's